Good morning.
No, that's on the lead.
Today is Monday, November 5th, and this is the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board Committee. This is the complaint committee meeting, and notice was posted on the board's website for this meeting on November the 1st, and I will turn it over to our litigating attorney, Ms. Pamela Spicer, for the rest of the complaint committee. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Pam.
Pamela.
You have the report in front of you. I don't have anything as far as the report to point out, but I'll be glad to take any questions that any of you have about any of the complaints.
I think it might be good if we just go straight to 44 and work backwards.
And just so the board knows, 44 is not my complaint, but I'm familiar with the complaint. And the reason the new recommendation exists is because we're not going to have a way to get the individual served. That's why we're recommending a letter of warning, because that's really all we can do if we're not going to be able to get service on the individual. And you can see by the update, we've attempted to send things by certified mail, run a clear report, and all of that, and we've been unable to locate.
It seems like such an easy out to get lost.
Well, and of course, in any litigation, that's always going to be the issue. If we can't get the individual served, there's really nothing we can do because we're required to serve them with the notice of hearing and charges. So at least this way, with a letter of warning, the person's placed on notice. If something comes up again, we can try to serve them again. But, I mean, obviously that's an ongoing issue with any litigation, no matter where you are.
Was this something that was happening in a home, or was it in a
Says in the
commercial
home.
space? Or, I mean, if she's been doing this for a long time, it seems like she would have a physical location.
I would have to go back and look at the complaint. I can't remember specifically without just looking more at the details. Of course, this is an older complaint.
Right.
And as you all are aware, because of the legislation, these were all put on hold, which caused some delay in getting these processed, and of course now we're unable to locate. It's not to say that this, of course it would be sort of flagged because of the letter of warning, so if this individual comes back and starts to work, that would be one thing to consider. But, the delay in acting probably did not help in being unable to locate. So for all we know, this person is no longer working. We don't know that one way or the other, so all we can do at this point is do the letter of warning.
Well, thanks for clearing. I didn't realize that wasn't under your watch or how old this was. But, with the fact that the attorney admitted the respondent was unlicensed, it seemed like having an attorney involved makes it a little bit somewhat more trackable than just somebody calling out of left field. Do we have that attorney's name or anything, Pam?
I'm going to speak from my private practice days. You can hold yourself out as someone's attorney, but refuse to accept service on their behalf. Because if you haven't entered a notice of appearance, so for instance, in circuit court, if you file a complaint on someone's behalf, then you're their attorney of record. But if you haven't filed anything on their behalf in court, you're not necessarily their attorney of record. So you don't have to accept service of process on anyone's behalf. You have to have your client's permission to accept service. Basically, from my private practice days, it's a way to evade service.
How many times did you do that?
I would never have advised my clients to do that. I'm just educating from private practice that does.
I can tell you how it's done.
That does happen. I mean, obviously, at that point, the attorney should no longer represent the individual, but
Yeah, no, I get it.
that's between them and who they have to answer to.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a question on number 4 on page 2. Remind me how long a license has to be expired before the penalty goes from $100 to $1,000?
Here's my understanding of what we are doing. It's 3 years because when they are just expired, we have consistently applied the $100 civil penalty. When they reach the point that they would have to retest, that's when it goes to $1,000 because they can't renew at that point, would be my understanding, after they get to the point of having to
It's a
basically
3-year
retest.
lapse, but they can't just renew. They have to
The
actually
statute
go
says they
retest.
must test, yes. But with the $100 agreed citation process that the board has approved, if they have an expired license, it's $100. But it's that first time, that one time you've allowed it to expire. The next time we catch you, we bump it up. I don't remember if it's $2 or $250. Same thing would apply for the shops. The first time that you're working or open with an expired license is that 100. And then we kind of had a stepping stone. You're welcome.
Just a curiosity about 16 and 17. Is this supposedly a shop doing this or an individual?
Just so you know, these are two different respondents. They are
okay.
not related.
Okay.
It was odd that we received complaints. My recollection is the complaint is coming in from what appears to be maybe the same person, but we couldn't substantiate the violation. So, it could be any number of reasons that someone would file a complaint like this. But when we sent the inspector out, we couldn't substantiate the allegations, so we can't go forward. And to go back about the expired license, the second offense, so if you have an expired license and the inspector comes out, it's a $100 civil penalty. It then goes up to $500 the second time. Then the third time is $1,000, and then we've taken the position that 3 strikes and you're out. However, that will get them to the 3 years if they go out annually. So then you get to the $1,000. So it sort of makes sense the way it increases.
On case number 12, it refers to off-brand products. There's no, you don't have to, you can use any product you want, right?
Right.
Whether it's
I was
diluted or not
including that in
diluted.
the summary just so you know how it came in. Would not particularly be relevant to legal in making any recommendation, but I wanted the board to see the allegations.
Right. I appreciate it being there because it caused me to wonder if that was the case, if that mattered or not. I didn't think it did, but I wanted to be sure. It seems like there's a whole lot of history here.
What I can say is, yes, they have a significant history, but by the complaint numbers and what has happened, of course, I don't look into all of the old complaint numbers unless we were to get into litigation. But it appears a lot of them were dismissed or closed or complaints were withdrawn, which obviously happens sometimes. And then they haven't had any complaints. In 2017, they had one that was closed. I do think, based on the allegations, which is why I requested another inspection, because they're denying the allegations, but we probably need to go, especially with the history that they have.
I agree. I mean, usually where there's smoke, there's some fire anyway, and it seems like a whole lot of smoke there.
And as you all know, when I request a recommendation for an inspection, those don't necessarily have to be coordinated, so we're not necessarily putting the respondent on notice when we go out. So the hope is, if there is something there that I need to know about, I would find that out in the inspection. And sometimes there's a request for inspection before it gets to me when the complaint comes in. So try to be consistent on those.
19, it says respondent failed to respond. Is that Do we know for a fact that they received that? It just seems crazy that you wouldn't respond in some shape or form, as opposed to just blowing it completely off.
Sometimes they don't respond. I don't have the statistics on it, but depending on the allegations, particularly if it's unlicensed activity, my personal opinion is, I take it as an admission, but it's not a legal opinion. So I was just wanting you all to know that in this particular instance, they failed to respond. I would say when it's sanitary violations, they usually respond, depending on the violation. But sometimes when it's unlicensed activity, they do not respond. And I would guess there's a particularly with depending on the type of practice. Let me say that.
Motion to approve the report?
Yes.
43, under the decision, there's an individual's name. That's something I'm not accustomed to seeing. I was just curious how
Oh,
it's
I'm
relative.
sorry. That's another attorney. That was the attorney that's the attorney's name that's handling number 44. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. I'm good.
Motion to approve the legal report?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the legal report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We
Thanks,
will
guys.
adjourn until 10 o'clock. Thank you.
This meeting of the State Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners is called to order. First order of business will be to take a roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Gillihan. I will go ahead and start. A notice was posted for this board meeting for the November 5th Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board meeting. It was posted on the website on November the 1st. And to start out, we have 3 members participating telephonically, and so after we do roll call, if you can put us on mute. But in the meantime, is Ms. Kelly Barger there?
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Anita Charlton? Ms. Nina Coppinger?
Here.
Mr. Frank Gambusa?
Here.
Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Here.
Ms. Yvette Granger?
Here.
Ms. Brenda Graham?
Here.
Ms. Judy McAllister? Ms. Janie Ross?
Here.
Ms. Patricia Richmond?
Present.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Here.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Here.
And Ms. Amy Tanksley.
Present.
We have quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. If we can, let's have the approval of the October 1st, 2018 minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Good. Motion carries. Miss, before we get into the regular business before us, I always like to welcome our guests and thank you for coming down. We appreciate you taking part in our meetings, and we like to recognize any schools that are being represented here. So if you're with a school, if somebody can stand up and please tell us who you are, where you came from.
The Salon Professional Academy.
Thank you for being here this morning. Good to see you. Thomas?
Thomas James, the future American College of Barber.
Thank you. Well, thank y'all for being here. We do appreciate you coming. One other item that I'd like to mention before we go any further is one of our members, Mr. Jimmy Boyd, has recently passed. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say a few words to his family and those who knew him, and just remember what a wonderful man, what a tremendous barber, what a example of a great businessman, and recognize the many, many wonderful things and attributes that he brought to our industry. And we're going to miss him. We definitely have regretted his passing, but our thoughts and our prayers go out to his family, and we thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Roxana.
Sir, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're going to start on your iPads with our appearing for the board. It is that time of year, and the first thing that we have on our agenda is presentations for our continuing education for the 2019 year. The board will be reviewing almost all of them. I'm missing 2 other schools that were not able to get theirs together, so we'll see if they can present it in December. So the first one you have on your iPad, starting on page 3, is the Educators Success Sessions. This is with Miss Stephanie Brown. Miss Brown, if you're out there, if the board has any questions, they'll go ahead and ask, and you're able to answer, I think. We've got her requesting 2 different dates. The sessions are both held in Memphis, April 14th and 15th, and then on October 20th and 21st.
These are of next year, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we need to correct that on the form. I've got 2018 on the dates.
Oh, you're right. So, Ms. Brown, on the dates that you've got in the middle of your first page, Ms. Tanksley is absolutely right. You have the year as 2018.
I will send over a correction immediately via email if that's possible.
Yes, thank you.
Roxana, you want to take these individually one at a time?
If that's okay, that way if the board has questions or anything needs to be deferred, when we can make sure to do so.
Are these all repeat folks who've
Yes, we don't have
seminars?
any new individuals at this time. I believe for December we had somebody interested. They'd be coming in for the first time. But these are all from what was offered this year as well as last, actually.
And as we go through these, will you let us know if there were any issues with the programming this
Absolutely.
year that would give reason why next year would not be
Absolutely.
a good idea?
Do you have any other questions again about the Educator Success 2019?
Had no problems last year.
No, the evaluations came through fine. Ms. Granger, feel free to. Did you participate? You were able to go to hers, were you not?
I did attend Miss Stephanie Brown's Educators Access, and it was absolutely amazing, very interactive, very informative. So I say it's a go.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Amy Tanksley to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good, too. Motion carries.
And thank you very much also, Ms. Brown, for participating electronically. You're welcome to stay with us the whole meeting, and if you could just put us on mute, but otherwise we're moving on. The next on your iPad is PBC Incorporated. The session is put together by Ms. Pearl Walker and Ms. Celeste Harris, and they are both here today. If you have any questions for them, they'll be happy to answer on your iPads. The information shows that this session will be presented on September 22nd and 23rd in Germantown. I was able to attend one of the 2 days for that session, and there too the evaluations came through wonderful. And I believe, Ms. Granger, you attended that as well.
I attended both days,
Both
and
days.
it was wonderful. Very interactive again.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. The third on your list is Expertise Consulting, EDU corporate session. This is put together by Ms. Sierra Gordon, and she too is here before you if you have any questions. This is for 2 different dates at 2 different locations, on October 12th and 13th of 2019 in Nashville, and then October 19th and 20th in Chattanooga.
Morning, Ms. Gordon.
They just said good morning. I don't think they'd seen.
How were the reviews on this one?
They were very good, and Ms. Gordon did a great job on her Excel spreadsheet. I actually was able to see a pie that was very easy to read. Sometimes these are lengthy and hard to see statistically, but we did not have any problems. I was unable to attend, unfortunately. It clashed with something else I was doing for another program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this program. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Next on your iPads is from Mr. Thomas James. This session, Mr. James also had his first round of sessions last year. He is here to appear before the board if you have any questions. He is requesting 2 dates as well and 2 different locations. You have March 10th, 2019, and then June 9th, 2019. Mr. James, if I could ask you to come up, because I don't have the second day for your information, just the first day. Sorry
Sorry about that.
So on the first session, I just want to make sure it's March 10th and 11th?
Yes, ma'am.
It is, okay. And 11th. And then the same thing with June 9th and 10th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I attended his session last year as an instructor participant, and I'll say he did an absolutely wonderful job. Thomas, congratulations. In my opinion, you were excellent. Mr. James was an employee of mine until very recently, so I'm going to abstain on this vote.
Thank you.
I also attended one of his classes, and it was very good. I was very informed with it, so I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Question. I had many people after my second session ask if I were doing a third. I was wondering, could the board grant permission for me to possibly do a third if you guys were to have someone available to sit in on that at a later day?
Well, what'll happen with these dates is as soon as I've got everybody's, we will pass around for board members to sign up for them.
Okay.
So our hope is always that a member or myself can go.
Okay.
I doubt we'd be able to go to 3 dates.
Okay.
But you're still able to ask for 3 dates if that's what you want to do.
Okay.
But right now, that's what we have. Now, the only thing that I would, your session online, it won't really have a name. It's going to say Thomas James. Is that the way you want it?
The session online.
Information.
Oh, the information. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, just my name. And
Okay, because right now it says 2019 Barber and Cosmetology Continuing Education. So that's, that won't print. Now, when they open the document, they'll see it. But just your name?
That's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's fine.
And don't forget to add the extra date.
Yeah.
March 10th and 11th and June
You'll need to change
9th
it
and
to
10th.
include the
Okay.
2 days.
Yes, ma'am. Will do.
Okay. Thank you. We've got a motion and a second, I believe.
Have any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am. I'm good.
Okay. I'm sorry, before I proceed, what you were really asking, I think, was if you wanted to have a third session,
Yes, sir.
you need to come back and just ask
Okay.
whenever you see that there's some
Okay.
more demand for that.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, for the
Thank
date.
you.
You bet. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 I abstain.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, you have the University of Tennessee Knoxville UT Conference Center, and this is on page 13 of your iPads. They were not able to come in person. This session actually meets as a group and prepares their information. They are requesting to have the session on Sunday, July the 11th, July the 21st, and Monday, July the 22nd. I was able to go last year, as was I know Mr. Gambusa, and their results have always been very good on their evaluation.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On your iPads, the next item on page 17, this is our last continuing education presenter that had submitted things. This is for the Masters Educator Academy. Ms. Amira Jones-Rubin was planning on appearing before the board. She had a medical situation and had to change her plans, and by then I had all the information before you. You're welcome to review it. She is requesting to do it one seminar in the Memphis area on August 19th, 18th, and 19th. This is the session that had, I believe, 2 days scheduled for 2018 and canceled both. I just know that in the past the board has had some concerns over those things. If she can attend in December and you'd rather delay it, that may work out fine. I believe the reason for the cancellation was lack of participation, but that really is difficult on the board office to deal with because you've got instructors that have planned to do this and sometimes don't have another option or have reserved rooms, change plans. I know things happen, but that's tough with the smaller sessions because students don't understand that it's based on you having it for a certain number and then things change.
Because we had a couple of those over the last few years that have canceled, and it has created a real hardship that I've seen from several instructors. For myself, I think I'd rather table this one and have them come in December.
I agree. Okay. Not necessarily. I think since it came up early this morning that I found out she wouldn't make it, I told her that it was already here for you to see, but that very likely we would defer it, and she preferred that as well. So that'll give the board an opportunity to see this one, and hopefully the other two big University of Memphis and TSU hasn't had a chance to turn theirs in. So hopefully we'll have those three. That is all we've got for our school items for continuing education. So next on your iPads is a new school application, and this starts on page 20. And if you'll give me a minute, Ms. Delaney. If they have questions, just need to make sure that that's on.
Okay, and I have the update because the one I gave was just the classroom size. I didn't add the bathrooms that they could like a little break room.
Okay, you'll explain.
Okay.
This is Naturally Yours Hair Academy, new specialty school. Ms. Latasha Delaney is appearing before you. This is a school for natural hair styling. The school is located in the Memphis area. She has presented a business license, curriculum, a blank contract. The 5 tentative contracts have been submitted. The floor plan is there for your review. An application fee were also received timely. The floor plan is on page 23. However, I don't believe it's complete, and she's brought a revised one. Would the board like me to pass that around for you to have a better idea of what it looks like?
But please.
Thank you. So are all these copies?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to leave you with
Okay,
one so
okay.
you've got something in your hand.
Okay.
Thank you. Is this a comparison of the old plan and the new plan, or is this the entire new plan?
It should be almost.
It's an add-on because what I sent was just the classroom, so I didn't send the portion where they could have access to the restroom and have a break area.
So, Lady, what is the total square footage?
I know the room is a total of 180, and the rest of the rest of the portion where the restroom is at, like 138. 80, I say over probably 340 square footage, I think. Because where the building sits is inside of office suites. So it's other office suites inside. So we share restroom facilities and have break area.
The restrooms are just separate as part of the office suites.
Right,
They're not
right.
contained within yours. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Break room. You mentioned a break room. Is that within your space as well, or is that separate?
Yes, because where the restroom sits, exactly how the floor plan look, the restroom is next to my suite.
Okay.
So it's an area outside where the restrooms are at, that it could be a break room area for them to eat or take a break.
Is this planned to be apprenticeship?
Yes, just
Okay,
apprenticeship
exclusively.
program.
You know the distance of between center chair to center chair? Because this measurement is showing 183.5 square feet,
Okay.
and yet the way these stations in the L shape look, the 6 stations.
Yes, because the stations, the room is able to sit at least 8 students inside the room, possibly 10. So how I have it set up, I could set it up in an L shape, or I could just do a traditional classroom setting. So it's enough room for each student to be placed in the classroom for their comfort.
Based on a 30 square foot station, which is typically 6 deep by 5 wide.
Yes.
that would
so
only
the
get
tables are 6 feet. Each table is 6 feet.
Oh, it's not a station, it's a
They're not
table.
stations.
No, it's a table.
Just those chairs are too close together to operate, though.
Well, I
That's all
guess
I'm
because
saying.
I created the floor plan on my own, I was trying to, put it together.
Yeah, that would have to float out much
Right,
further to the
right.
center of the room
But
in order.
each table can sit at least 3 chairs to each table because it's 6 feet wide.
Well, if
On a practical station, which I think I know what you're talking about, Frank. On a practical station, it should be a minimum of 5 feet center to center on each chair.
she's saying this is 6 foot round, that's only 2 foot per 3.
Yeah.
Right? That's impossible.
Well, the way I created it, I didn't create it not thinking of the square footage when I was doing the floor plan, but each table that I have in the room is 6 feet, each table.
Right, so at best, you would only get 3 at 2 6-foot tables.
Right.
And that would be 48 inches on center. You can get 6 in here, but it's going to swallow the whole room up. I mean, this drawing is fictitious compared to what can happen naturally, so we just got to question if there's enough space there or not. I mean, you're looking at 183 and a half square feet. And I don't know about shared space and all that, but it's going to be tough to operate with an instructor that's small. But it may be legal.
There's nothing that gives us the dimensions for the specialty schools. However, that in itself gives the board some discretion. They have to start with 5 students, 5 contracts. But that's not to say that they would have to at all times necessarily maintain 5. But 5 should fit
But you can get 5
comfortably.
in there. I mean, it doesn't sabotage
Correct.
this. I'm just putting it out there
Right.
Correct.
for your understanding so you can operate properly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I had like a trial just to see how it fits the comfort level of people. I just invited friends or family just to sit in there, and it's comfortable in the room.
Laid out like this?
Yes.
Well, if somebody's behind that chair, how does somebody get to the other chair without
Well, I switched the tables around.
from this?
Yeah, from
so
this.
this is not the way it is.
No, because
Oh, okay.
I could switch the tables around in the room
Uh-huh.
if I choose to. I could do an L shape, or I could do a traditional sitting, like table in front of each other.
So how many students would you plan on having once you get your 5 open? What would you like to see accommodate this from a financial
I don't want
and
any more.
profitability standpoint?
I don't want more than 10. Between 5 to 8 students is comfortable for the room.
And that financially works with that
Right.
amount of students?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
You welcome.
And you're just doing a apprentice only, it's no
Yes,
clinic
ju-
floor?
No clinic floor, just apprenticeship.
Okay.
Yeah, big difference.
And the break room and bathroom facilities, they're shared by the other people in the office suites?
Yes, the office suites, it really doesn't be anyone in there, just really me. So it's not going to really be a big issue because the other people that works there that has the office, they really don't be there at all. So really, it's me in the building.
The smallest school we have approved is 340 square feet. It was manicuring, a specialty school, and I know we went back and forth on how small it was, but, and Sherelle can read the statute, it's,
I'll say there's no minimum requirement for a specialty school like there is with the regular cosmetology school or barber school. But the rule does give the board discretion to determine whether or not a space is adequate for a specialty school, and that's under Rule 040. 0400-01-.01. So the board would have discretion to determine what's adequate, but there's no minimum requirement for a specialty school.
A brief question about your refund policy. You do have a refund policy, I see that. And you're indicating that students should receive a prorated refund. Is that just a one-to-one, dollar-to-hour kind of refund? You don't have any kind of scale or anything in there that would say what percentages?
Well, I have a chart, have the percentage of what they will require a refund. So I had went on the Tennessee requirements of what the percentage would be for each student, whatever hours they already received, and if they decided they want to leave, I would just go accordingly to that chart to determine what percentage they would get returned back.
But you may want to put that in there somewhere.
Okay.
Percentage, somewhere in your contract.
Yeah, that's what I said I was going to do, to revise it and
So
put
they would
that chart
have a
in
full
there so they can
understanding
see.
form.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I don't feel completely comfortable and like you're really, really ready to move forward because there are just a few little small things that need to be clarified a little bit better on how these students are going to be moving around comfortably enough to be in the classroom setting and learn. And then also just the last statement that she said about you were going to do what? Can you repeat what you said? You said you was going to do something?
No, they was asking about the refund.
Okay, and what did you say?
I just told her she ought to put it in writing, the percentage part, after so many hours, so that they would be fully understanding.
Yes, because I
where
had
they
that
would
in the
fall.
policy, like they would get a catalog and it has it in the policy where they will, it has a chart that will let them know visually what their refund would be.
So with that being said, I think that we, as the board, need to visually see that scale, see that percentage or whatnot before we move forward to opening the school. So you won't have any situations, and that protects you and the students.
Right. Because I have worked in a specialty school before, so I know how the layout would be and how comfortable it would be. So I know it would be definitely a comfortable setting for them.
So are you saying that you'd like her to resubmit the corrected information? Approve with a visit and inspection, or are you?
I just want her to submit the corrected information and maybe get a board member to go down there just to check the school out, because that's how we've done most specialty schools.
Yeah, I'd question whether this is going to be comfortable for 5, because really, as I'm looking at these dimensions, this is the size of a, maybe almost the size, maybe by a foot or two, one way or the other, of a treatment room in a spa.
Like
where you would get a massage or a facial. I mean, that's
I
most
understand.
rooms are 12 by 10. So this is 12 by 14. So you go
Yeah.
long and short. It's going to be extremely tight. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to send my kid to school, and I mean, this is nothing against you because you seem like a very nice lady, but I'm thinking you're going to be sitting there for X amount of hours trying to study and be in a learning environment. And I mean, it's tight. If I broke this thing out, it's half the size of this circle. I mean, a square in the middle of the room.
And so I understand that you just kind of did this without really knowing the square footage exactly. You just kind of got
Well,
it
I
together.
asked the owner of the property to give me a square footage, and he went and gave it to me. But I asked him, did they have a actual copy of the square footage of the whole building?
So I guess
Which
what
they
I'm
didn't.
what I'm
So I
trying to
had
say,
create it.
this created floor plan is not accurate to what you're trying to do, what you're going
Right,
to
but
do.
if you see it visually, you will
And that's why I'm
understand.
wanting you to resubmit the correct information and get a board member down there so we can see exactly what's going on. Because everyone opening a school has to submit the correct
Right.
information.
Right.
So it's nothing against you. It's just that's how it's been going.
Are we looking at getting all the correct information at the December meeting
December.
and then sending a board
Yeah,
member? Is that your
December.
motion?
Yes.
We have a motion to,
My motion is for her to get the corrected information submitted for the December meeting and then send a board member out to inspect the school.
Is this your school's catalog that's on here?
Ma'am.
Is this the whole catalog that you put on here?
Yes.
No, yes.
It's what you sent me.
Yes.
That's all you have on your catalog?
Yes.
Okay.
so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Then Donna Coppinger, I'd like to second it.
Okay. Thank you, Nina. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Let me, just to make sure that we are directing Ms. Delaney in the right path, we would like the contract to be revised to include the refund percentages, and the floor plan, as the statute requires, needs to be to measurement.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you rather for it to be a picture, an actual visual picture, not a?
Roxana,
You're
is that
welcome
acceptable?
You're welcome to submit a picture if you like, but we really need the actual dimensions, the actual
Okay.
physical measurements of how things are going to lay out. And
I think if you did both, it might be helpful
Yeah.
for the visualization of it.
Okay.
I think it can work, but
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
borderline.
Right.
And that's why I think we're asking for
Okay.
confirmation so you can move forward.
Okay.
so thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next, we have our applications to test, and those start on your iPads on page 42. We have application for examination for Melissa McLeod, Kaylee Watkins, and Scarlett Guy. The applicants have felonies within the last 3 years and/or are currently incarcerated. The request is to take the Tennessee examination. Is provided to the board. You have also in front of you a letter recommendation from the school and the cover sheet or applicant's explanation of the felony. The board normally approves a 2-year agreed order for a probationary period. Upon legal sending that out to the applicants, we can then put them through the test. I'll let you review and ask any questions if needed. Otherwise, we would need a motion.
We're making a motion to approve these applicants to test with the 2-year probation. I'd like to make that motion, please.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve these applications with 2-year probation and agreed order. All in favor say aye.
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 Say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a few international applicants on your iPads on page 66. This is an applicant for a manicure license from Vietnam for, yes, 66. For Tran Ao. Ms. Ao presented her transcript evaluated by Aqua International and is requesting permission to take the Tennessee examination.
Similar to any that we've approved in the past?
Yes.
It is.
It is. And with our international applicants, if we accept the hours, then we always request that they take the exam. What we can discuss, if the board is comfortable with it, given that in 2019 we're only going to meet every other month, we've reduced 3 meetings. If we have either Aqua International or documents that are stamped by an embassy, consulate that look legitimate, if the board is comfortable with us putting them to test and giving me the authority, or if we want to continue presenting them at the meeting, I'm perfectly fine either way.
But that could possibly hold somebody up 8 weeks if it comes in the day after.
Those are the kind. Yes, this is one of those few things that we've still left always presenting to the board, so we can discuss it.
I would make a motion to give your office the ability to make that decision, providing it follows status quo.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to authorize Roxana with the appropriate documentation from an embassy or this Aquio company or similar who have verified the information to give her the authority to go ahead and grant approval. Any questions or discussion?
That's approval for them to test, correct?
Right.
That is correct. So
Yes.
instead of them coming before the board and being delayed potentially 2 months, then my office would review and put them through to take the exams if the educational documents all look like they're there.
Okay.
But if the educational documents look legit, legal.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now,
Also make a motion to approve this applicant to take the test as well. Tran Ao, not sure how to say it, but that,
Thank you. Yes.
I second it.
we have a motion and a second to approve this application for both tests. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, you have an application to test as a manicurist with hours from Vietnam for Nang Lee. Mr. Lee completed 750 hours in 2017, and Aqua International has completed the evaluation stating that the documents are authentic.
I make a motion that we approve this gentleman to test.
We have a motion and a second to approve him to take both tests. Is he seeking for manicures, did you say, or is a full?
It is manicurist. That school, World Nails, does them at 714 hours.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. And next on your iPad, you have a request for an approval of a manicurist license for Man No. Mr. No has attended a school in Georgia currently under investigation and not accepted by the board at this time. He completed the application to test and was entered by the board office prior to the complaint process being created and the situation being presented to the board. Mr. No has passed both exams and the practical on August 15, 2018. These exams were passed in Tennessee. I believe we had one similar situation where before the complaint and the allegations came up, our office put someone to take the 2 exams, and so currently he's passed both Tennessee exams and is requesting a license.
what's the recommendation?
I didn't make one. I believe in the last applicant, we went ahead and approved the license because with this investigation that hopefully will wrap up soon, but we still don't have anything new to report, those applicants that previously went to those schools have gotten a license. We're not going back on any of those licenses. In this case, he was put through to test, just hadn't passed by the time all this started.
Has passed since then? He's passed both exams?
Yes.
I make a motion to grant him his license.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant the license, and if we, just as a comment, if we happen to find through some investigation that he fraudulently submitted the paperwork, then that's we have an avenue open for that. So, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. We are moving on to reciprocity. If the board needs a break, let me know. Otherwise, we will continue. This is our first applicant. We have a total of 7. Application for reciprocity of a master barber license from Michigan for Ahmad Al-Jumaili. The certification shows that Mr. Al-Jumaili received his license, his initial license in Michigan on December 20th of 2017 by reciprocity. And that document is on your iPads on page 91. Mr. Al-Jumaili states that he completed hours in Michigan and that in order to take the exams, he had to actually redo school. The office received a transcript stating that he had cosmetology hours from a particular school. Those transcripts are on your iPad starting with page 93. Later, a letter was sent explaining the mistake and that he actually did barbering hours. The Michigan State Board was asked to review these transcripts, and they then responded to us and stated that Samuel School is not a licensed school in their state. Mr. Al-Jumaili also provided a letter recapping his situation. That letter for you is after his exams, starting on page 103. I will let the board review. He's already been sent a letter by the board with the consistent board's recommendation, which is anyone with international hours and less than 5 years work experience in the United States needs to take our exam. So that is the letter he's received, and therefore that is my recommendation.
Motion to follow the recommendation on this applicant.
Have him take both exams.
Yes. Now, on his letter, and he's come to the office, I know he is ready to be licensed, but unfortunately his license in Michigan is from 2017. If you look at the certification, when they say reciprocity, they're accepting the hours from outside of the country. The fact that they don't have this as a licensed school is concerning. But in any case, I don't know that the board has ever changed that with just less than a year of work experience. But I will let you review that and decide.
Michigan granted him reciprocity, and then he, for some reason, ended up going through school to get hours. Thought that school was not legally licensed, and so those hours count for nothing.
Right.
So he has no hours.
He has the hours. I mean, what I explain when we have applicants, and I know you can all understand it's heartbreaking to stop someone from working immediately, but the hours are acceptable if we see the transcript, and Michigan did, so they have proved his hours and find them acceptable. They put him to test and he's passed. The situation that the board has decided is if it's less than 5 years in the states, we require those exams as well because each state's exams are different. And so that's kind of where they're at. We've made a few exceptions when they're very close to the 5 years, but otherwise I think we've been pretty consistent with asking for those exams to protect the public.
That was Frank's motion, is to test. Did you make that
Yeah,
motion?
because I think it's still giving the opportunity, right? To
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second to allow this applicant to take the Tennessee exams. Is there any other? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
No.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology instructor license from Virginia for James Brewster. Mr. Brewster is a licensed cosmetologist in Tennessee and has been since 1996. His certification from Virginia shows he is a licensed cosmetology instructor since 2006. Virginia does not require additional hours or the practical exam. Mr. Brewster has been working as a premier national educator in salons and has now been offered a job as an instructor in a school. I will let the board review again the fact that he's been licensed since 2006. I would recommend that he take the practical exam for the teaching methodology.
Roxana, is he missing a practical exam?
Yes, in Virginia, they do not do the instructor hours. They can just, based on experience, similar probably to our junior instructors in our states, that they can work under someone to get their hours. This would be similar. Virginia does do a theory exam for instructors, but not a practical. And his, on page 109, and I apologize that you all would not have it in front of you, but he's explaining that he has an offer at a school. He's been teaching to some extent, not in Tennessee, but through salons and things. So now that he has this opportunity, I believe the license, which is an instructor license, allows us to consider that license as reciprocity, but it's just not identical to what we require.
Okay, and to be consistent, we would just require him to take the practical exam.
That would be my recommendation, but the board can decide if they believe he needs more or less.
So he's already licensed in Virginia and has worked as an instructor there. He simply doesn't have enough work experience to.
They don't require the practical. I mean, it's.
We have a recommendation for anybody. Do we want him to take one exam or both exams, or do we want to turn him away? What do we want to do?
If a licensed instructor in the state of Tennessee were to have their license lapse, remind me what happens at that point.
They would need the reinstatement exam, which means the theory is just 25 questions on the rules and laws, just like our licensees, and then the practical. And so for the instructor, the practical would be the teaching methodology, would be the topic picked.
I would almost like to see him do that because he was not an active teacher for this long. So if it had happened in our state, if that license had lapsed, then that would be the process for our state. So I almost feel it would be fair for him to take both those exams.
Laws are so different from Virginia, so.
He's been a licensed cosmetologist in Tennessee since 1996. So he's had that license.
I'm motion that he take both tests.
Full test or the reinstatement?
Full test.
Okay. We have a motion to have this individual take both portions of the instructor exam. Do we have a second? Hey, Ross, a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Needs to know it.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from New Jersey for Lynn LaRocco. The certification shows Ms. LaRocco obtained a beautician license in 1982 with 1,000 hours, and both exams. She's provided a letter regarding her work experience between 2002 and 2013. The license is not identical to the cosmetology license in Tennessee, nor the cosmetology license offered in New Jersey. My recommendation is that the applicant take both Tennessee exams. And you have the email communication back and forth on your iPads as well.
She's been a cosmetologist for how long? Quite a while?
Well, she's not a cosmetologist. New Jersey has a different license. It is a beautician license.
Well,
So-
but that means cosmetologist
Yes.
in Jersey, though. That's their verbiage for a cosmetology
No,
license.
at 1,250 hours, they have a cosmetology license. At 1,000 hours, they have a beautician license.
But what's the difference?
I believe it includes nothing with the nails, the manicuring piece, the crossover, because it's just very few hours. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
I mean,
right.
you hire, it's viewed the same for hair services.
Would the exams be the same?
I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to answer that properly, but it's just a terminology that I'm very accustomed to.
Yeah. So they actually have both types of licenses, and she doesn't have a cosmetology license. Otherwise, we would have been able to take her work experience and approve her internally in the office. But because it's not the same, is why she's before you, because she's had the license for a long time.
I think the plenty of work experience makes up for that little difference, in my personal opinion. I mean, if it was 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think it's one thing. In this case, it's what, 30?
1982, yes.
Yeah.
Your recommendation was for her to test?
Only because it's a different
Yeah,
license.
right.
And the exams, I believe, would need to be different based on the fact that New Jersey also has a cosmetology license at 1,250 hours. But that's at your discretion. She's got the work experience and the hours, exactly as Mr. Gambusa states.
Take the written test?
She can take the theory. If we go back, I think a couple of years ago, we put through several applicants with just the theory, and it was a little bit problematic because then they've got to remember that they don't need the second one and to come to us. The system's geared to always need the practical. The practical is really how we do safeguard the most. If they're both important, but
Kind of makes waves in that pipeline from PSI.
You know, I see how many times that we've granted internationals the ability to just take the test based on work experience. I think there's enough work experience. I think she should test some. I would recommend she at least take the practical to show that she's valid enough to be able to practice. Because here's the thing, if Jersey didn't have that license, if it was called a Cosmo at 1,000, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And, you know, I think because of the hitch of that, I don't think it should hold somebody back from getting employment.
What I'm hearing is practical and then over here theory, so would we have a motion to take both portions of the test?
Well, maybe the practical gets deleted and they do just the written. I think something's in order, but
I was just saying to get the laws, the test for the law portion, assuming she knows what she's doing behind the chair.
and not to throw a glitch, but statistically they do better on the practical. We're just an artistic, creative profession, so our licensees and applicants tend to do better on the practical than they do on the theory.
I'll take
What's your recommendation, Aim?
I think we've all agreed that she needs to take one of the tests. I don't have a preference as to which one. If
Not
you
me
think the
either. I just don't
practical
think
is
she
more-
should have to do both based on the fact that there's a glitch or a weird.
Written test comes first in the basic order of things.
And the theory has the laws, right?
Laws, and also has about 15% of 10 to 15% of the test, I think, is on nails. So
I suggest laws. I mean, theory. I'm sorry.
we have a motion to have this applicant take the theory test. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from California for Alyssa Newman. The certification from California shows an initial licensure in 2002. California State Board has provided information to all other states regarding concerns with a long list of schools. Since at this time all applicants from these schools are deferred until an investigation is complete, Ms. Newman is unable to provide a transcript because she attended a school in 2002 and that school is now closed. California does not maintain records further back than 5 years, and Ms. Newman does not have proof of work experience. I believe at some point the board had decided if we don't have a transcript, we had to have work experience. So if that would be the case, to be consistent, we would need to deny this until the investigation is complete or she has a transcript.
Make a motion to deny until investigation is complete.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to deny until the completion of the investigation. Any other discussion?
She also provide work experience. She's been licensed since 2002 and can't provide any work experience.
That is exactly what she has said.
I think that would come with the investigation, providing her work experience.
The investigation is on the school she went to. I understand why she doesn't have a transcript, especially if the school hasn't been open for a while.
I think what the board at either the last meeting or our August meeting determined is if they're coming from a school that is closed, to not hurt them. If we could get 5 years work experience, to be assured, and we can clearly tell from the certification that they've been licensed for quite a while, and that's the case. Her license goes back to, on a different applicant, I apologize. I believe it's 2002.
Right.
So, but she can't. Her statement says that she does not have proof of work experience for the last few years.
At all.
Can I take back my second?
Maybe she'll take maybe she's took a break from it. Maybe she worked for a while and then didn't go back to work for a while.
Roxana.
Any work experience, even if it's
On 125, she says, I do not have proof of 5 years work experience, and didn't say anything about recent or old or anything else. So
We've been doing 5 years work experience, right? Okay.
Yes, the board had requested for
Yes.
these individuals without a transcript, to be fair, to ask.
Can I take my second back?
Take your second back?
Yes.
draw your second.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to deny until the completion of the investigation.
I have a motion.
Do we have a second? One at a time.
Sorry.
Nana Coppinger, I second.
We have a motion and a second to deny until completion of the investigation, or I presume if she provided work experience. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no.
Yvette.
Yvette. This is denied. So, Yvette, you wanted to make a motion regarding something?
Yeah, from my understanding, the investigation was for the school, right? Not the individual. That's why I was trying to get a clarity on. So, with that being said, she's trying to get her her cosmetology license to work, but she cannot provide proof of work. So, if this investigation goes through and everything is fine,
Or
then,
the transcript. She can't
or
provide the transcript.
So, if this investigation goes through and everything goes fine, then they do whatever they're going to do with that. She still can come back and get her cosmetology license without any.
Right.
Okay, so what if it turns out bad on the school end? Then what happens with?
What we've done with Texas, it'll be up to you all as a board. With Texas, the schools that had issues, we don't accept those hours to this day, and we're 3 years into it.
Okay, that was my concern.
Yeah, but that would be at your discretion, depending on what they find.
Okay.
Next is an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from New York for Courtney de Andrade Pereira. The certification shows that Ms. de Andrade Pereira was initially licensed in October of 2014 with 1,000 hours and both exams. She's provided a letter regarding her work experience between July 2014 and February 2015, and she also presented 2 letters to the board asking for reconsideration because she's short just 1 year. My recommendation would be that she be approved for reciprocity.
Her appointment was as an apprentice.
I believe so. She's got. Oh, and that's
She wasn't fully licensed at that time.
right, but New York has, and Mr. Gambus, I
Right,
think, has
right.
filled us in on those requirements. But we do see it a lot with New York. They are allowed to start practicing in shops once they've come close to their hours and get a permit.
And this is different than the previous case because we have proof of the hours.
In which case, I apologize.
The previous.
Well, the previous is California. We've got 22 schools under investigation. New York, right now, at least, doesn't have any problem with hours.
We assume the hours are
That we
good
know
and we know
of.
she's licensed.
Right, that we know of. Right. So this would be 1,000 hours. She's short 500. And normally then we would require work experience to be right at the 5 years. And so she's going to be short regardless. She was able to get her temporary license to start working in October, maybe even a little bit before that. But she still doesn't quite have the 5 years. She would have 4.
She's short the hours and the work experience then.
If we're waiting for exactly 5, yes. And so sometimes if we've come close enough. Now on her letter on page 133, she kind of explains that she did get a letter from our office that said she needed to take the additional 500 hours. So that is why she's asking the board to waive those, because it would actually obviously set her back to have to go back to school and so forth.
Advice that she take the test?
But without all the hours or the board's decision on the hours, we told her that she needed the hours because the board's guidance has been to give me authority if they have 5 years to approve them, but if they don't, they get a letter saying they're missing hours. So that is what she received. Now she's provided, the document on page 131 regarding her apprenticeship having started really in July of 2014. That still doesn't bring her to the 5 years, but it's pretty close, which is the reason for my recommendation to go ahead and approve her.
I'd make a motion to accept your recommendation.
So we have a motion and a second to accept their recommendation for approval. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Georgia for Taylor Thompson. The certification shows Ms. Thompson obtained a hair designer license in September of 2009 through apprenticeship with 2,650 hours and both exams. She's provided a letter from an employer showing work experience between 2007 and 2017. The license is not identical to a cosmetology license in Tennessee nor in Georgia. Recommendations that the applicant take the exams. Now, our previous one, we're not having the previous one take both, so I will leave that up to the board's discretion.
I'd like to recuse myself from this vote due to the fact that I just hired this girl.
Okay.
She had 10 years experience working for a friend of mine in Atlanta. Does that get counted in for any credit whatsoever?
Probably part of the apprenticeship hours. 'Cause that's how she would have done the 2,650 hours.
10 years.
Well, her license started in 2009.
Oh, a license started then.
License,
Okay.
that's what we look at.
And she's not taken any exams in Georgia?
But she has. She has taken both exams, but the exams are for hair designer. Georgia, there's a couple other states that have a different license as opposed to the full cosmetology, whereas ours includes the manicuring, the manicuring piece as well as the aesthetics piece, and our top bits of that. Some of the other states that have a different license may focus more so just on the hair.
So even if she's not going to do any of that, it would still permit
License
her
we're
to do
giving
it,
her, the
right?
license
Right,
is
because she
full.
won't be doing any
Yes.
of that in Tennessee.
Right.
She's also completed 2,650 hours of.
Yes, but remember that in Georgia, the apprentice hours for manicure, for cosmetology, are 3,000 hours. So it's not a huge difference. I think the hours are there, and it's a matter of the exams. Are they the same? Now, with the previous applicant, the motion was to just do the theory exam. So it's at your discretion if you want both. It's just not a cosmetology, what the statute lets us accept, because it's
Apples
not
to
the same
apples.
license. It's not apples to apples.
Good.
So if we grant her reciprocity, that's for a cosmetology license.
Yes, ma'am.
I just don't see how we can grant reciprocity for something that's not the same.
Correct. I think what we would be doing then is accepting, obviously, the hours and making a decision of what do we look for to protect the public, since the license isn't identical. And Mr. Gambusa is right. We don't know what they're going to do with the license, but the license would be equal to somebody that can do everything. And once you have that license, you really can. It's at your discretion to decide what to do.
So the last one we looked for from New York, right? She had
Yes.
1,000 hours in
New
school.
Jersey.
New
Yes.
Jersey. She had 1,000 hours in a same thing. It wasn't a cosmetology license. It was a beautician license. This gal this applicant, I should say, has
Hair designer.
a hair designer, also not equivalent to the cosmetology
Correct.
license. But we just granted.
No, we said the other one has to take the theory exam.
So let me ask.
No. This last one we just approved
But
reciprocity.
she has a cosmetology license. The one from New York with 1,000 hours has a cosmetology license and has taken the cosmetology exam. The New Jersey was the one with the beautician license, further back.
What's the difference? What's the license that she has now?
This license is a hair designer license.
So what's the difference in the hair designer license? The beautician's license was, it excluded nails.
We don't
compared to
know
the
what
you
it
don't know?
really truly excludes, but it's not the same. It's mostly hair.
Okay.
Whereas
the same
ours-
thing with the hair design license.
Make a
And we-
motion. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And we approved to take the theory on that one? Is that what you're saying, Amy?
I'm just trying to. I'm sorry. My mind is clearly jumbled with all of the different combinations we've
I
seen
can see
today.
why that happens, Amy. It seems like it was a lot of it was periodical, where they wanted to get rid of the old word cosmetologist and say hair designer. And, through the years, there's a hairstylist license out there somewhere that doesn't define what the heck a hairstylist is versus a hair designer versus a beautician versus a cosmetologist.
Right.
And, I think at the end of the year, if somebody's got a decade's worth of work and they're doing hair, I'd rather see them be able to get a job than let terminology hold them up. And I think we got to be careful we don't become Grandpa's Buick and be making decisions based on this terminology.
Yeah, the reason that I keep asking, because it just seems like they're doing, I guess like what you said, Frank, they're doing the same thing. Heck.
Yeah. And the market determines whether they're good at it and whether they can make money doing it, right? But at the same time, then there's rules and regulations that define certain things. And I think it's sometimes you're stuck between a rock and a hard place to be able to make the right decision for somebody being able to be a contributing citizen.
In the previous scenario, that were very similar to this one, we approved it for
Theory.
a theory exam. So
Make a motion that we ask that this applicant also take the theory exam.
we have a motion and a second to take the theory exam. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Second that. I
Abstain.
apologize.
Patty.
Patricia?
And Frank abstains then.
Yeah. Our last reciprocity applicant is on page 142. This is an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology instructor license from Pennsylvania for Quayanor Zell. Ms. Zell obtained a license in Tennessee for cosmetology by reciprocity in 2016. At that time, the instructor license was denied because she did not have the 3 years of licensure that the statute requires in order to obtain the licensure. for instructor. At this time, she is requesting to get that instructor reciprocity license back. The certification from Pennsylvania shows that she obtained it in 2015 with 600 hours and a theory exam. So my recommendation would be that she take the practical exam.
Make a motion for it, take the practical.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to take the practical exam. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. We are moving on to our miscellaneous, but to take advantage of Ms. Spicer here, would we like to just skip to the legal report and kind of go over that piece?
That would be excellent.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The complaint committee met this morning at 9:30 and approved the legal report, including my recommendations, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone has, or there can be a motion to approve it.
Anything that really jumped out that we should all know about, that stood out, besides basic stuff?
No, there was nothing.
Okay.
There were a few miscellaneous questions, but nothing that stuck out for the board's consideration.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any other questions or discussions? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back then to our miscellaneous on page 148 of your iPads. This is a request for an extension of continued education requirement for cosmetology instructor Angela Hill. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-114, an instructor must complete 16 hours of approved training from an approved training program. It is at the board's discretion to approve up to one additional year for good cause. She's provided a letter explaining that she's had many life-changing circumstances keeping her from handling her life. Records indicate that she completed required education between 2002 through 2016. In 2007, she appears to have taken back-to-back sessions with no documentation explaining why she was off a little bit for those years. She's completed a session on October 13th of 2018, not realizing that she was behind 2 years on her renewal. So she should have, to stay in compliance, done a session by September 30th of 2018. She attended the session on October 13th. I happened to be at that session, and as I spoke, she realized she was 2 weeks behind. So she is requesting that that course count for her 2018 renewal.
Make a motion to approve that class for her most recent renewal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for an extension of continuing education requirement for a barber instructor, Janet Dunn. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-3-124, an instructor must complete 16 hours of an approved training course. It's at the board's discretion to approve up to one additional extension for good cause. She's provided a letter explaining that she had to miss the October session because her husband has a medical situation. Records indicate that she has completed the required continuing education between 1992 and 2016. This is her first request for an extension.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. I'm familiar with this case. I've had a number of phone calls, and so I will abstain from this vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And last on our miscellaneous application request, this is a request for an extension of the 6-month time to obtain a license from Miss Amanda Peck. Pursuant to Rule 0440-01-.10, an applicant must pay and request for the original license within 6 months after passing the practical exam. The board has given authority to the executive director for additional 6 months for good cause. Ms. Peck provided an explanation of how she missed completing the process. She passed her practical exam in May of 2017. So it's at the board's discretion to accept this, or she would need to retest.
Passed both of her exams.
She has. She passed the practical on May 2nd of 2017 and the theory on April 7th of 2017. And before her exams, she has her letter explaining why she didn't understand the process, I presume.
Make a motion we grant her her license.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant the license. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, next on your iPads, we are on our budget and director's report. We have closed the fiscal year for 2018, so on page 167, you'll see the breakdown of the last 4 years, and it's not always we get good, happy news, but we finished fiscal year 2018 with $614,875. The projection that we kind of talked about while we did the small fee increase was to have at least hopefully a cushion of $350,000 or so, and it's pretty darn close to where we thought, given that we knew we were dropping money with our barbers and with our dual shops. It was a hard guess, but I think this gives us some type of a cushion without it being very large. I think it's definitely in the right track.
But after the Christmas party, that's going to be gone. Right?
Yeah, most of it will. Okay. So I'm open to any questions, but I think that really is what we had thought would happen, and it looks very darn close. Next on your iPads, you've got July and August that both months have finished, and also we're seeing small amounts each month, but at least not going in the red any of the given months. So for those 2 months, we have a reserve of an additional $61,370. So nothing really big to report there, but like I said, I think that's good news. The next 2 pages are consent orders. Those are the closed cases with civil penalties and so forth that I presented for your review. Let me know if you've got any questions before we move on to new business.
Motion to approve these, Roxana?
No, this is more information for the board, and if you had any questions and I couldn't answer, I'd definitely follow up on that. No?
Roxanne, before we get into new business, I think we're going to take about a 10-minute break.
Okay, sounds great. It's 11:15. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Here's where I go to for that. Oh, okay.
Thank you. We are back.
Yeah, see, it's right.
Right, we're back in order here, and we're ready for new business.
Thank you. One order of business that's not on your iPads, just a quick update. This is on Tennessee Academy of Cosmetology. I know at the last meeting we discussed the 2 campuses in the Memphis area closing on September 18th. I just wanted to kind of go over it again. The board discussed handling the situation the best way that we could. We did approve one student who did have the hours, thanks to her high school hours being extended for a few months. She was put through the test. And as of the last meeting, the office hasn't gotten additional calls or emails. It has calmed down. I believe a lot of the schools in the area have stepped up and really helped the students. But I know that we left it with Sherelle doing some additional research on if the board has any authority whatsoever to dismiss or waive or take into account the minimal number of hours that could be pending, and we've discussed it, and there is no room for any of that. So I believe the one that had the closest was a manicure short 11 hours, and I've not heard from her, so I'll have to assume that one of the schools was able to assist her to finish and prep for tests. So that's where that piece is. And the last item that I have prior to Sherelle updating us on the rules is regarding the Barber School reinstatement application that we had. So on your iPads, you have some documents, and I'll kind of walk you through them. At the October 1st, 2018 board meeting, there was a request to reinstate a barber school license. This was presented by Dr. Barbara Winfrey. The board denied the reinstatement of the school at that time and had many concerns. A letter was sent to Ms. Winfrey asking for information about the hours offered while the school had no license. We requested instructor information, anything else she could provide, given that at that meeting we didn't have all the answers. We just thought that in order to piece everything together, we would need some more information from her. We have not received a response to that letter. As a matter of fact, it was emailed, but the one in the mail has come back in the mail. The board also sent a field inspector out there to make sure that the school is closed, and the last time that they went, the school is in fact closed. That school had continued to take new students, as the board is aware, even after the license was revoked. The school license was revoked sometime in January 2018, and since then, none of those student hours probably would count. We have done the best that we've been able to find an instructor that was teaching at that school. I have not been successful in doing so. I went back to many, many months ago of reports. A name that was on there contacted him, and he said that he had met with the owner and considered it but did not teach. And so what you have before you are a few situations. We realized that the school, when on a revoked license, was putting students into PSI to take the exams. We are not aware of any instructor, at least to date, that was teaching, that we could say at least the educational hours did come from an instructor and we can consider them. So to date, without that proof, we're kind of stuck for the board to discuss. PSI has blocked several students from taking the exam of those that were put through in 2018. And so on the iPad, we have a total of 2 students that are licensed, 2 applicants. Israeli and Musa are the 2 names. So we license those individuals. Those are the 2 individuals that sign a contract in May. You all looked at the last meeting. They finished by July, were put through to take the exam in July, have passed, and our office didn't realize all this was happening. And so they have been licensed. So that's one piece that we can talk about. We have 2 pending, and that would be Gaston and Denial. They have applied for a license, passed both exams, and I've had to put them on hold until this meeting and we can discuss. And then we have 2 more that have passed both exams and just haven't applied yet with us. So those are 2 licensed, obviously are a completely different issue than the other 4 that right now we're holding. And then PSI has blocked a number of others from testing, I believe 3 others. So at this point, we've got 4 individuals that have tested, and we'll need to make a decision on what to do.
I think we remember the circumstances of the school here, that they were accepting and enrolling. I'm sorry.
You're good.
We had found they were taking in students on revoked licenses. I think that just from my own personal point of view, I have all the sympathy in the world for these folks. They have paid for something, and maybe the student thought they were going to be in a legitimate situation, but unfortunately, it looks like they're not. At what point do we say that the individual has to bear some responsibility and understand that they need to do some investigation on their own before they get invested in something like this? A little bit of personal responsibility. With these two students that have already become licensed, I am troubled by that they made it through the system, and then I see these other, 8 or 10 that are caught up in this, and is this all of them, or just the ones that we have at this point?
What we did is, and again, because the hour reports were submitted under a revoked old license versus what she was applying for, the whole disconnect was just pretty intense. But in any case, I've gone back to reports since December, and the school had a license in December, so those should be considered legitimate. So what we have is 4 that we are blocking from a license right now. 2 they've passed and haven't applied. 2 have applied and we're holding. So those are 4. 2 are going to be are blocked by PSI. So it's a total of 6 applicants that are in the pipeline that we're going to make a decision about because they don't have a license. Those that passed the exam on top of it, of course, have paid that money and proven that they've learned something. The 2 licensed are licensed, and we can follow, Sherelle and I have obviously met and discussed this. We can follow her guidance on those, but they're a little bit different because they have gotten a license, so that would be a different process. These 2 that aren't going to test and 4 that are in the pipelines, we're talking about 6 students. That is the total. It's still, 1 would be too many, but we're talking about 6. My hope, quite frankly, was to find the instructor that was teaching. So my concern, she had given us 2 names. One name, both of the last name were Martin, no such licensee since 1974 with an active license. So that, but Marquise, I believe, I have left a message for. He is a school owner, so I don't want to say that it will turn up that he was instructing prior to owning his school. He owned the school during that time. I don't know that he would have been able to own a school and teach at his school plus this, but I have not heard back from him. So that is going to be still my big attempt. The other item that I would like to do, whether with Sherelle or however we can, is speak to the students that are in the pipelines, because obviously if we haven't already heard from them today, we will, because we're blocking them from testing or delaying their license. So we need to reach out and speak to them. And that's the first question. Who was the instructor? If the instructor was Dr. Winfrey, she is not a licensee. And I'm only saying that because at this point, none of her reports had an instructor listed on them. So going all the way back to November. In November is when I saw page 2, and I contacted that instructor, and he said, I was not hired at the school at all. And I have very good reason to believe he was being very honest. So in any case, it's left us stuck until I can follow up with this and I believe speak to the students.
How were these folks put through to test?
She would have had the code, her old code with PSI, and we didn't block the code until a little bit ago. When a school is revoked or closed, they normally stop teaching, close doors, and so forth. So it isn't that fast that PSI can expedite and close everything down because you've got students in the pipeline that earn their hours rightfully so, if that makes sense.
And you have your license posted on your schools, and it's right there in the public where you can walk in and see it.
And remember, so your license, yes, but your license right now says your license is active, and that's what you would post. If something went wrong and we revoked it tomorrow, and you didn't post it or pull it down or show it revoked, the students would not know
They wouldn't check
that
the
it was
date.
made wrong.
Yeah.
So that's
These 2 students that are already licensed, we've got their applications for their test scores. It says that they started 5/1/18,
right.
completed 7/31/18. So, what did they have hours from other schools? Do we know this?
they did the whole thing at her school. They're barber techs. Barber techs are 340 hours. So these are the contracts that we looked at the last meeting when we were concerned and the board asked how could contracts be signed on a revoked license and so forth. These are those exact 2.
It's the woman that walked out on us, right?
Correct.
Like our hands are really, we can't give them credit for hours that was not legally taught to them.
So for these
Our
6, that is
licenses,
kind
yeah.
of the dilemma. As we've debated it, we have not come up with a way that the hours could be accepted unless we can find an instructor that says, oh, I taught, I have a 1099, I have proof of paychecks. Then their license is on the line and we can deal with it. And we've had that. We've had one school many years ago close where the owner did not intend or know, and so the school remained open until we happened to hear through someone went, and sure enough, and those hours were accepted because all 3 instructors were at the school continuing to conduct business as usual, and that's what they stated on an affidavit. I was teaching. I didn't know this took place.
Right, that really goes to what you said just a minute ago. The school was notified, but they didn't pass that down the line to their staff, and the staff was really innocent in that.
And then we earlier just approved somebody to test where the school was not legally licensed, but they had gotten hours. Didn't we do that a little bit earlier today? Huh?
Oh, from Georgia?
Oh, we denied it. Okay.
We did not. In California, yes.
If we were to look at these folks, let's say we're California, and California says, hey, these folks went through a non-existent school or a non-authorized school in Tennessee, and they're looking at the same scenarios. Isn't that what we're looking at California with? Unlicensed schools, unsubstantiated hours from students, and we put them on a list and we're stopping those folks. So we probably want to be careful here about not creating a double standard that other states would look at us.
I just don't see how we could put them through to test, you know. And once it's got their license, could we like do a 2-year probation period for them to see if they're following all the rules, or is it too late for that?
They followed and passed the exams, right? So I don't know if we can flag. I mean, we've definitely never done that. I think that's a different issue. And we will obviously separately follow a complaint process, do whatever else we can from that side. But the students, I think, are the big piece right now that we'd really like decided to proceed.
And I guess I feel strongly this is not the student's fault.
No, it's not.
But that,
And this school took their money and likely have not returned that money, and they thought they were paying that money to get their license or the opportunity to get their license. And of course, we can't make the school give them their money back, but I think the people who are really lost are these students who, you know, and you can say they should have known, but they don't.
They don't in a lot of cases.
And the school doesn't want to give them their money back because they've got bills to pay, and it's just
and
kind
2
of
got
sad.
through, right?
Pardon?
And 2 of the batch got through. So,
Right.
you know, is that the luck of the draw, or do the others deserve the same shot?
Well, I mean, I just, you know, I would like us to find a way, I guess that would be my challenge, to make it okay for these folks to obtain their license. Not going forward, not as a catch-all for everyone, but because these students are the ones who are feeling the brunt of this, and they, you know, they didn't make bad decisions.
One thing to kind of add to all this, we're not exactly sure what was happening at this point because we haven't conducted an investigation. We do have hourly reports for these students that show anywhere from 220 to 240 hours being completed in 1 month, and that does raise some questions about what the students believed was happening as well, because that number of hours being credited is unusual. And so we don't really know for certain what was happening here as far as who knew what and what type of arrangement really took place with this.
You could have just been clocking them in and them not even being there. Because, you know, 48 hours is your max, 192 for the month, you know?
Okay. And also, with Amy saying something about, you know, the students paid their money and, you know, it's not fair for them. I do totally agree with that. What if it's a thing where if the student can show proof of their receipt for paying for their school or their hours, maybe they can assist in what we need to do? Just a thought.
This is Mona Stoppenfield. I was wondering if maybe the school owners had a surety insurance bond as to protect students' money that they could reclaim? Is there some way we could look at that?
So the school is revoked, shouldn't have taken contracts or done hours or done any of this. I can almost guarantee there wouldn't have been a surety bond. It's not required by statute anymore. I just don't know how a school that, at least from what we're seeing, wasn't doing things right would have a bond to fall back for the students. That's very good wishful thinking, but it's definitely not in the statute yet, and they weren't following the statute that was there.
Thank you.
The students would have to individually sue the school owner to get their money back, probably. It'd be legal.
But Sherelle, what you're saying is the hours that were submitted don't follow regulation either.
They don't, and we've not been able to investigate to determine what the students actually believed or what their role in any of this was. Was this a situation where they were actually in class and paid money and believed that this was a licensed school?
Two-way street.
What was their thought process? Because some of them were credited 240 hours in 1 month, and that's a lot of time. And so I just want to make the board aware of that. We haven't confirmed whether or not this was fraudulent as far as the students are concerned, or exactly what the situation was, because we haven't done a investigation.
What is your recommendation?
We've not, as Ms. Camusio stated, we've not determined that these hours could be accepted under the law because they were accrued at a school while its license was revoked, and we've not been able to confirm that a licensed instructor taught any of these hours. And so based on that, it just does not appear that these hours are eligible to be credited.
I believe, if I recall, she stated that, or the owner stated that a lot of these hours were obtained while that unlicensed student was working in her barbershop next door.
So we did that same week send an investigator, and we searched our database. This is a barber school. There is no barber shop within a 2-block area or so that would make sense, fall under her ownership, etc. So we looked into that with the thought of immediately sending someone, kind of connecting those pieces again. That wouldn't be the right path, but we looked into that, and at least as of now, we don't have an ownership of a shop that's listed under her. I've only got the one instructor yet that I really do hope to speak to see if that connects any of these pieces.
I believe he came through for an approval of the school.
Yes.
About this time last year.
Yes.
Smyrna.
Yes.
I know he worked for them previously.
And that's my concern. On old hours, he was there, but once his school opened and he's teaching at his own school, it's hard to teach 240 hours that are over and above what you could teach anyway, and to teach at your own school that's at least 20 miles away. But that would be that last conversation, hopefully.
How many hours? These are all barber tech?
Not all, no. So of the 6 that we are discussing potentially blocking and not being able to approve, there's 1 or 2 that are barber tech, but there are a couple that are barbers. These 2 that have gotten licensed are barber techs. That is 340 hours. Most schools don't do the barber tech program anymore, as those of you in the industry can tell. It's a little bit limited, but yet has the basics. It's interesting because it is, when a field inspector walks in, a barber tech generally sort of compared to the shampoo tech in the cosmetology side.
Is there going to be an investigation?
Yes, we are going to request investigation. If the board wants to give us a little bit further guidance, we're happy to. We definitely needed a decision on the students that will be put on hold or denied. That's 6 of them. And
So,
then,
Rox, were they ever asked about how they could have attended that many hours in that short of a period of time?
we can definitely, the investigator can ask all of those questions.
Okay, but none of them have even discussed that
No.
topic yet.
No, we have not spoken to any of the students.
And school owners in the room, does that sound like a high amount of hours in a short period? Sounds like a lot. I can't even get them to work that
You do
hard
good
for
getting
money,
there
never
30-something hours a
mind
week.
attending the school.
Well, and the statute says that you may only complete 48 hours within a week, and so that limits it right there. Now, there are a few months that have the 5 weeks, so that could be doable, but that's not every month.
So can we
And-
make a motion to leave this as is on hold until we have more information?
We can. Now, the only, I guess, response that I would like for the 6 students that either Sherelle and I or the investigator are going to talk to is their hours at this time, I don't believe can be approved until the possible only way would be finding an instructor that was working there licensed to teach. If their answer is that Dr. Winfrey was teaching, she's not licensed to teach in this industry.
In other words, we really got to deny their license right now until the investigation is complete.
Their hours.
Their hours,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to make that motion then.
I'm going to second it.
We have a motion and a second to deny their hours. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Anything else that the board thinks we should do, please email me, call me. We'll move
More
on.
information post your investigation.
December, we'll have an update.
Now, has she reapplied? Wasn't she here trying to reapply for her school license?
No, I do know that at least, I would assume she has the letter that we prepared with the board's decision and recommendation and requests for additional information, such as instructor names, because I emailed it to her. But the one in the mail has come back in the mail. So we know nothing else. Okay, and the last thing that we have is an update on the rules and the status, so I will turn that over to Sherelle.
Thank you. So the rules we're referring to are the rules updating the equipment, and those are still being reviewed internally for edits or potential suggested changes. Once that process is complete, I will update you all further on the next steps. Thanks.
Members have anything you need to add? Okay. Roxana, there's one thing that I guess it probably should go under new business, but concerns PSI. Last week, on Wednesday, I believe, of last week, and I may be off by a date, 2 of my recent graduates who had been scheduled to take their practical exams with PSI received, they were scheduled to take their practical exams on Thursday of last week. They received an email on Wednesday, I believe, informing them that the tests had been canceled for both of them due to a lack of proctors to administer the exam. I had asked one of my staff members to contact PSI. I hadn't heard anything back from them, but I thought that was quite unusual. Especially for such a last-minute thing. These kids had scheduled their practicals and were ready to take them. And since, I don't normally hear from other students from other schools in situations like that too many times, I'm wondering if we've had an issue with that. Have we had several cancellations with them due to lack of staff?
I know that something happened here in Middle Tennessee with a death in a family, and so you need more than one proctor. So if that is the case and they can't move a proctor from another part of the city, because that could then jeopardize that exam, I know that could happen. It's happened in the past, and the only time it does is when there's a death in the family, close. We had one lose a spouse, one lose a child. Yes. And so that would be the case. But again, I think what every school needs to do immediately is contact PSI, find out when they're rescheduled. They should honor the registration fee and move them to, I guess, the next available date. But because it's not like the theory, and you need more than one proctor there,
Right.
I can see that happening.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to always reach me if that happens.
I've never had that scenario happen.
And it
I've had
doesn't.
them get postponed for
Yes.
weather and things
Yes.
like that in the wintertime.
And they inform us when the weather is a situation, so they stay on top of it. But I know due to deaths, that's happened in East Tennessee at one point and really did set them back. And then here not too long ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else to come before the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second. You got 20 seconds, right?
All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Thank you so much for those board members and helping us electronically. We appreciate it. We are adjourned.